Why should Ram be relevant even today?
Rama was a dharmagnya, which means he understood dharma. These qualities are very hard to find. It's a durlabh to find in one human being.
How is Hinduism really defined?
The essence of Vedanta is aham brahmasmi, that I am that existence, I am that consciousness.
What are the key differences between Valmiki's Ramayana and Tulsidas's Ramayana?
Valmiki composed was a biography, and he says that kon vasmin sampratam loke gunavan kasya viryavan dharmagnascha kritagnyascha satyavakyo dridavratah. Tulsidas, that is to show bhakti and to show his karuna. Both the Ramayana and the Mahabharata are referred to as itihasa. And itihasa means it happened thus. It so happened.
The Ram Janmabhoomi case, finally Supreme Court gave it back to Hindus, and that's when the construction of the temple started. Why do we need to build a temple? Hospitals and schools built in.
Unfortunately, the historic aspect is the one that is lost. So this whole controversy, because that aspect is lost. And he's a deity only for Hindus.
Ram being the man of principle, and the way Bali was killed, the Sita's Agni Pariksha, even Shambuka's death.
Yeah, you could not defeat Bali. It was impossible. Indra had given him this magic necklace. That necklace had the power to sap the strength. So if he stood in front of you, your strength would go to Bali. In Dharma, life is like that. You don't always have to choose between right and wrong. Sometimes you have to choose between a bigger cause and let go of one Dharma for a greater Dharma.
Uttishta Jagrata Prapya Varanna Bodha. Arise, awake, and strive for knowledge. Namaskar. Upanishads form the spiritual basis of democracy, and democracy is a way of life. No, it's not me, but Dr. Ambedkar who said that. And he criticized Hindus in one of his seminal books for not following this as per their scriptures. अमूमन हमारी चर्चाएं जब धर्म पर होती हैं तो रिलीजन क्या है और धर्म कैसे उससे भिन्न है पर सीमित रहती हैं. But we rarely discuss where from we can understand Dharma better. Joining us today is Priya Arora, a distinguished author and scholar whose work brings timeless epics to life in modern contexts. Her latest book, Ram, the Man of Dharma, a retelling of Valmiki's Ramayana, delves into the profound teachings of Vedanta, weaving them with the narrative of one of India's greatest epics. Priya's insightful reinterpretation of Lord Ram's journey highlights the relevance of his principles in today's world, offering a fresh lens through which we can understand ancient wisdom in modern times. We are thrilled to have Priya Arora with us today to explore these ideas and gain deeper understanding of Ramayana's continuing significance. Let's dive right into this conversation. Welcome, Priya, to the show. It is an immense pleasure for me to have you here, especially because we are celebrating the Navratris, and we'll be soon celebrating Ram Navami, and what better time to talk about Ram. I would like to understand, we are in Kali Yuga, and Ram was born in Satyug. The situations are different. The cultures have gone tremendous change from then to now. People have undergone tremendous change from then to now. Societies are different now. Why then should Ram be relevant even today?
Ram was actually Treta Yuga. So between Treta Yuga and Kali Yuga, there's a lot of time that has passed and a lot of things that have changed. Well, first of all, they didn't wear jeans then.
Of course.
And so stuff like that. But there are certain things that are never out of style.
Okay.
And that is Dharma. Dharma is Sanatana, which means it's forever. It's not for Satyug, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga or Kali Yuga. It's for every yuga. And Rama is a walking embodiment of Dharma. Therefore, he is eternal. What he stands for is eternal. So what is this Dharma that's eternal? To explain that, I would need hours and hours. In fact, I'm writing a book on it. So it's that lengthy a subject that I felt it needed a whole book.
Right. Congratulations on your new book. I would love the audience to know more about it.
Rama was a dharmagnya, which means he understood dharma. So, what is this dharma that he understood? Dharma is an outlook. It's a way. It's nothing to follow. It's not something. It's not a belief system. Dharma is a way of thinking, a way of behaving, and it's something you have to understand, not something you have to follow or believe in. And it's different from religion, because religion is something you follow. Dharma is something you have to understand. Dharma is best described as it's symbolized by the bull. Nandi, the bull,
Of course.
symbolizes dharma. And when that bull stands on all four legs,
Nobody
dharma
can-
is at its highest. So in Satyug, dharma was at its highest. So what is this? What are these four legs? The first one is satyam,
Okay.
which is truth. The second one is saucha, which is cleanliness but purity, more in the sense of purity. The third one is tapas, and tapas comes from tapa. The word tapa means heat. So what it really implies is self-sacrifice, something that is
To burn yourself,
that
yeah.
which you do, which is an austerity in that way. And the fourth leg of dharma is daya. So that we all know. It's a Hindi word as well. It's kindness. So these four comprise dharma, and using them in the circumstance varies, how you use them. So that's why it's not something you can follow, because I cannot tell you do this and this is dharma every single time.
Correct.
It may be dharma in that context, but it may not be dharma in another context. But these principles are everlasting principles. You tell me, are any of these principles not valid today?
Of course they are.
They are valid today.
Very much.
So therefore Ram,
I think they are repackaged and sold to us
in different ways.
in different ways.
Yes, but the dharma is the same.
Correct.
So that's why dharma is sanatana. Because you're talking about these principles that are everlasting principles.
You mentioned religion while you were sharing your thoughts. And since we are at it, why don't you also try to explain what is the difference between the understanding of religion and dharma? Because most of the modern world confuses dharma with religion. It is a way of life, it is something that you follow, and that's what makes you a Hindu.
Concept of Hinduism is based on the Veda.
Correct.
Now the Vedas have, there are four of them. Broadly, they are divided into two sections, you could say.
Okay.
One is the Karma Kand and the other is the Jnana Kand.
Jnana Kand,
So the
okay.
Karma Kand is basically to do with all the rituals, the ceremonies. The essence of the philosophy is contained in the Jnana Kand,
Okay.
which is also called Vedanta. Vedanta because end of the Veda, but end not locationally the end, not necessarily, at the end of the Veda, this thing. It's the essence, the end meaning. What does this whole Veda, what is it trying to teach you?
Teach you.
That is the point of Vedanta. So, and the essence of Vedanta is oneness. Especially Advaita Vedanta, which is what I follow, or what I'm a seeker in that field. In Advaita Vedanta, everything in this world is a manifestation of the one supreme reality. And what is that supreme reality? That supreme reality is existence itself, consciousness. And Vedanta terms that Brahman. Brahman. So Brahman means literally that which is expansive, that which expands, that which is infinite. That is Brahman. It's not a person, it's not a being, it's not an entity, it's not male, it's not female. It doesn't even have qualities. It is nirgun, different, because it is a power, it is a force, it is an energy.
Correct.
So that power is actually, it doesn't really look at anybody and judge anybody. It just is. This is the Hindu Vedic concept of God, which is very different from the Abrahamic concept of God. So the essence of Vedanta is Aham Brahmasmi.
Correct.
That's what it means. That I am that existence. I am that consciousness. Everything that you see around you is a manifestation of that existence.
Right.
You are existence at your core. I am existence. The tree is existence. The river is existence. The ocean is existence. Just anything. My little dog, whom I love to death, he is existence.
True.
And the essence in me and the essence in him, in my dog, is the same.
Yeah.
You see, it's the same Brahman that is manifested. So when we say namaste, that's what we're saying. I bow to the existence in you, to the consciousness in you. So that is the difference. You can worship anybody you like. In a religion, they'll tell you who to worship.
Who to worship.
You can worship God in this form and none other. You cannot worship in any other, in a religion. Whereas in a philosophy, in Vedanta, you can worship in any form you like or in no form. In fact, if you worship in no form, you've reached a very high level to be able to see oneness in everything. In fact, you're very close to moksha then.
And it's so interesting that the moment you've seen oneness in everything, all the 4 pillars of Dharma are in place. And thank you for, trying to bring out the sar in a few minutes, which is very difficult, but thank you for doing that. But that brings me to an interesting question which I'm asked often by young people, the youth that you interact with. What should we follow? It's so karma kand driven. More often than not, they see the pujaris, the pandits in different mandirs or their homes who ask them to perform rituals. But for a young person of today in the modern times, how do you how do you explain this bit about Hinduism in a way where they start feeling proud of it and they take pride in it and they don't feel as if it's restricting them? And second, the part of being one with that
The
power
consciousness.
above and the consciousness.
Well, it's easy for me to explain it. I'll tell you why. Because
Okay.
I was that young person. I was that young person. In fact, even Diwali for me was, all about the celebration and the firecrackers and all that that part of it, the social
course,
part of
social
it,
part
the
of it,
party
yeah.
part of it. Not into rituals, never went to a mandir, never did a puja. And you see, the karma kand, the problem with the karma kand is it's driven by the philosophy. But in today's time, unfortunately, we have forgotten that philosophy. And I'm not saying one shouldn't do them, please. I, who never believed in anything, I do my Vedic mantra puja every day. My day does not start without that now. But then, because I know the meaning behind them. So when I'm chanting that mantra, I'm actually envisaging what I'm saying. What young people should know is that the philosophy is the most liberal, the most broad-minded, the most modern, the most Sanatana philosophy, everlasting philosophy that one can ever have.
How?
The reason is because it doesn't put any demands on you. It doesn't say you have to do this. You're not a bad Hindu if you don't go to the mandir. You're not a bad Hindu if you don't do this and that puja. What it demands of you is to be the best version of yourself. And that is something that we have forgotten. That is the aspect that needs to be revived. And how you can be the best version of yourself is by understanding Dharma. I made that mistake. I almost said following. It's not following. You cannot follow Dharma. You have to understand it. And coming back to Rama again, and why I am so much in awe, and he's now not only in my heart, but he's also on my phone. Because he understood Dharma. Life throws you curveballs. Look at the situations he was in, the Dharma sankats he was in, and to know what to do. And he's criticized for a lot of them.
I'll come to that, yeah.
We can talk about that. And the criticism is because you see Dharma as black and white and as morality and not as what it is. Life throws you curveballs. Look at the situations he was in, the Dharma sankats he was in, and to know what to do. And he's criticized for a lot of
I'll
them.
come to that, yeah.
We can talk about that. And the criticism is because you see dharma as black and white and as morality and not as what it is, which is a dynamic living outlook, which you have to change based on the circumstances. What is dharma in one circumstance is not dharma in another circumstance. I'll give you an example because it may
Okay,
sound very
yeah.
theoretical.
Yeah.
And I'll give it from the Ramayana because, we're
Sure.
talking about that. When we all know that Rama, to uphold his father's promise, so his father would not be doing the wrong thing, he goes to the forest, right? He doesn't do it because he had to do it. He did it because it was the right thing to do, at great cost to himself,
Of course.
right?
Yeah. Today,
Now,
any son can refuse.
Nobody would do that today at all.
Of course.
But in this case, it was dharma. Now, it was dharma because Bharata was a wonderful person and a great ruler. He was
Okay.
also competent. So it's interesting because in the Valmiki Ramayana, Rama says, I don't have any problem going. Bharata is very competent. He can rule. Now look, if Bharata was not competent, supposing Bharata was not the person he was, I'm just saying, just supposing he was a loser, just supposing, then it would not have been dharma for Rama to leave.
Correct.
You see, the same circumstance
Would have changed.
would have changed because then you have to think, is it dharma for me to abandon the kingdom,
yeah.
leave it in the hands of someone who's incompetent,
yeah.
and go off to the jungle for this? Yes, it's good to keep my father's promise, but which is the higher dharma? See, that's what a dharma sankat is. In this case, it was dharma. In another case, it may not be dharma, which is why you can't follow dharma. You have to understand it. If you understand the principles, then you can apply them. Like if you know cooking, if you understand the ingredients, you can make your own recipe.
True.
Otherwise, you have to follow it. Like 1 spoon
do
of
this
salt,
and
3/4 teaspoon haldi.
True. You've mentioned, Valmiki's Ramayana is the basis of your book. And whatever you have written is primarily how Valmiki viewed Ram as a human being, as a man, and not really a Bhagwan, as probably what Tulsidas did. So Valmiki's Ramayana is considered to be the most authentic Ramayana because he was a contemporary. He viewed all of it happening in front of him, and that's how he wrote it. Tulsidas was born much later, so whatever he wrote it based on decades and centuries of reverence and
Bhakti.
stories and bhakti. And what are the key differences between Valmiki's Ramayana and Tulsidas's Ramayana, if we start with that aspect?
Okay. Well, you already said it.
Yeah.
Because Valmiki was a contemporary of Rama.
Right.
So he wrote, what he composed was a biography.
Right.
And he says that in the opening verses of the Ramayana. If you read the opening verses of the Ramayana, he asks his guru Narada, he wants to write a story about that showcases dharma.
Right.
That is his purpose. He wants to, and he is looking for whom he can write about. So
Okay.
he asks Narada, and he says it. He says, "Kon vasmin sampratam loke gunavan kasya viryavan dharmagnascha kritagnyascha satyavakyo dridavratah." So this is a very famous line. It is right in the beginning. I think it's the second verse in the Ramayana. So
Who should I write about?
who should I write about? That is, and this, for those who know Hindi, it's pretty self-explanatory. Someone who is a dharmagnya, someone who knows dharma. Who is that person? And then he lists 16 qualities. Amongst which he says not only all these qualities of He has to be brave. He has to be, grateful. He has all these wonderful qualities. But he also has to be extremely good looking. Eka Priya Darshana.
Acha.
So he has to also be extremely good looking.
Right.
And also someone who is the devas are afraid of. Who's so strong, who has that even the devas are afraid of him. Right?
Not just the
So
asuras,
Narada says, what you've asked for, these qualities are very hard to find. It's a durlabh to find in one human being. Yeah, many human beings can have it, but you're all this, and then he has to be really good looking as well. What are you asking?
True.
No, he says, but there is one, that is Rama, who lives amongst us. So he's talking about someone who is in existence, not about someone who is imaginary, not someone who is gone or to come, someone who walked the earth at the same time. So when you write from that point of view, it is very different from Tulsidas, who, it's also a beautiful work, Ramcharitmanas. I actually studied it in school because I took Hindi in school, luckily, and we had to study that. And it's a beautiful, beautiful work, but it's completely different treatment. It focuses more on Rama as an avatar,
right,
on his divinity, which is there. But
of course, any one human being having those solar gunas is going to be divine.
So that's the difference. And also there's difference in even in the story as a result. Like one of the famous things is Shabri eating the berries. So in Tulsidas, that is to show her bhakti and to show his karuna. That, towards someone who's a bhakt, that even her jhuta, he ate.
Right.
Even though Lakshman was not happy about it. But he ate it. That was to show that bhakti between the Lord and a devotee.
Correct.
That was the purpose. That is not there in Valmiki. In Valmiki, she doesn't eat the berries. What she does is she knows he's going to come because her guru had told her to expect him. So she goes every day into the forest and she chooses the trees. She tastes the berries from the trees. So, some trees have sweet berries, some trees have sour berries. In the same forest, you'll find that not all trees have sweet berries. So she would taste the berries from the tree and say, Acha, this tree has good berries. And she would pick those. So it's not that she gave him jhuta. She just tested the berries.
Right.
For taste. And then picked them and kept them ready.
Okay.
So see, different rendition.
Yes.
One to show bhakti,
Very interesting.
one to tell you the historical event. So Valmiki really narrates the events historically.
So what do you think was the reason for all of us to forget? In fact, frankly, anybody who's been born in the 80s and after would be more aware of Ramayana from the
TV
Ramayana
serial.
serials. But what do you think? And it is an important question because biographies today are being written about, all the great people who've been born in today's world or in the last several centuries. They've been written about people. But such an important aspect of it being a biography of Ram. What is it that led us to slowly, and I think you yourself have mentioned that we've forgotten Valmiki's Ramayana. What led us to forget Valmiki's Ramayana and make probably Tulsidas Ramcharitmanas, as the reference point of understanding Rama?
Yeah. So this happened actually slowly over perhaps the last 200 years. What happened was in, I think it was 1818? I'm not good with dates. Around then, give or take a few years.
Say for example,
J.S. Mill wrote the history of British India. And in that, he said that all this Ramayana and Mahabharata are all mythology.
Correct, yeah.
Mithya. In fact, myth comes from mithya. Because a lot of English words, are from Sanskrit originally. And the word myth is totally a copy from mithya. So, mithya implies not true. fiction, fake. Now this became part of our education. So slowly, we were taught. Before that, Ram was never thought of as mithya. He was thought of as a historical character. In fact, there is a couple called D.K. Hari and Hema Hari who've done a lot of research on this, and they have a book called Historic Rama. It's a slim book, but it's full of interesting facts. And one of the facts mentioned there is that Al-Biruni, when he came to India as a chronicler, he said of the Ram Setu, he said, he mentions it in his chronicles, and he says it's the bridge built by Dashratha's son Rama. So he mentions it as a historic event that took place, right? And Hamida Begum, who was the wife of Humayun, now she was impressed with the story and of Rama, and she ordered a pictorial edition of it.
Okay.
Then Akbar, in his time, even minted coins. Now, none of them were Hindu, obviously, but they recognized him as a historical character.
Right.
So they were obviously not doing it for Astha.
Right.
They were doing it because he was. So the point I'm trying to make is he was never fiction till about a few hundred years ago. Slowly, it became sort of widespread, the belief that this is all mythology. And even today, actually, I'm a little allergic to that word when it comes to Rama, because even now we call it mythology. Even in just talking.
While talking. True.
We say mythology. It's not mythology. It is itihas.
Correct.
Both the Ramayana and the Mahabharata are referred to as itihas.
Itihas.
And itihasa means it happened thus. Itihasa. It so happened.
It so happened. True. True.
So yeah. So the reason why I've digressed a lot, but the reason the reason why Tulsidas Ramcharitmanas is more prevalent today, and nothing wrong with that. It's a thing of bhakti.
My question was in regard with how we could pick something which was more. I think there were anecdotes and some fictionalized accounts, because he was, as we already discussed, he was not a contemporary.
Yeah.
How could we over the years pick that as the base of our faith instead of the biography is what
because it was all deemed mythology,
of course.
So all that was left,
and which was very evident from how we reacted, when the Ram Janmabhoomi case, finally Supreme Court gave it back to Hindus and said that they need to, it's Ram's Janmabhoomi, and that's when the construction of the temple started. And when it was inaugurated early this year, the kind of response that we saw, and it was a mix of shock, it was a mix of shock and love and affection and confusion, everything together, because there is a huge as I said, there are a huge number of Hindus themselves who were questioning why do we need to build a temple? Why can't we have hospitals and schools built instead?
Yes.
There were a set of Hindus who are, you could say, who follow their Dharma, or maybe who pray to him, for whom it was centuries of fight that culminated into them winning that war and getting back the place and the birthplace of their revered one. But what's shocking was that, and it shocks me beyond belief that at times when it's our own family members at times who come up with these counter arguments saying that मंदिर के ऊपर झगड़ा क्यों करना है? I mean, राम जब थे तब थे, चलो हम मानते हैं कि ठीक है वो रहे होंगे, but अब मंदिर बना के हमें क्या हासिल होना है? So what do you have to say to such arguments, and why? I mean, how do you view all of this, and the kind of emotional turmoil that the entire country and nation went through around them? How do around that time, around the time of inauguration, how do you view it? Especially because I ask you this because you stay outside of India. You can give us a bird's eye view of things better at times. We are in between all this you know confusion right now.
Right.
But how do you view it?
So you see, the thing is, there are two aspects to Rama. Unfortunately, the historic aspect is the one that is lost.
As we stated,
So this
yeah.
whole controversy and confusion and has arisen because that aspect is lost.
Correct.
And he's seen now only as a deity,
Hmm.
a deity only for Hindus.
Right.
But there's this other aspect. So I'm not saying he's not a deity. Of course he's a deity for Hindus. Of course for us he's a avatar. But his greatness was that he was Maryada Purushottam, which means that he was a man of amazing principles. That was the greatness. And he was a historic character. Now that again, as I said, in after J.S. Mill's work and subsequent spread of that belief, which is now so entrenched that it's difficult to overturn. People are stick to that. Oh, he's not real. He's a mythological character. But if you see that, and I have a whole chapter in my book explaining his historicity with examples. Again, there's a person who's done wonderful research on this. Her name is Saroj Bala, and she has given, her book is really good in terms of, I read it, and so and it whatever she said made so much sense, and she scientifically proved the existence of Ram. In fact, there's more proof of Ram than a lot of characters. Tell me, how do we know that Alexander existed? There's no birth certificate for him.
Of course.
There's no hospital which is saying that we certify that he was born on so. No, but does anybody say he's a myth?
Question it, yeah.
But there's more proof for Rama. There is more proof for Rama than there is for even Alexander, I will tell you. And that's in my book. It's too much to go through here.
Right.
But the reason why people objected.
Right from the birth chart.
Yes, right from the birth chart and everything.
Hmm.
And you can actually
Trace
his birth,
Absolutely.
his birth date from that,
And
because the
even
sky chart.
you can trace the entire journey.
And every place
Every
in
place,
India
yes.
is has a memory of his journey.
Correct.
Today,
Hmm.
you go to Chitrakoot, you go to any of these places, you go to Nasik.
Hmm.
That's Panchavati, Panchavati. It's, today Nasik, and the name even Nasik. Yes,
Correct.
because that's where Surpanaka's nose was cut, right?
Yeah.
And Nasika's nose.
Hmm.
So, there's so much. Anyway, that is a digression to answer your question. That the reason why people object is because this historicity is lost. If there is a historicity, then there is no reason for objection, because
course.
we have memorials, we have Rajghat, we have all these war memorials. Why? To commemorate
Absolutely.
his historic events and historic characters, and to pay tribute to great people who gone before us, right? He's an ancestor. He's not only of us in India, but he's an ancient ancestor for the whole world, right? So why should we not have a memorial for him? For us, it's Astha. That temple is the place of his birth. Of course, there is a special love that we have for it. And for Hindus who waited for 500 years for it, it's different. But for everybody else, at least look at it as a memorial. And why can't we have a hospital and a memorial?
Of course.
Why should it be one or the other?
No,
I
in
think
fact,
there's enough room for both.
In fact, interestingly, I don't know if you have followed his work or not, but Dr. K.K. Mohammed, who is
Yes.
he has been vehemently opposing his own set of people, saying that Ram, Krishna, all of them are historical figures. You have to accept
Yes.
it. Many of us they would be our ancestors.
Yes.
It's a different issue that over the centuries, probably some of us took to different faiths,
Which is fine.
which is fine. But and it's amazing the body of work that he's done
Mhm.
in this regard, and how he puts his views in. He puts his views so strongly
Yes.
against what is happening currently to try and
Yes.
not give them their due.
And he
So-
should know because that's his field.
Absolutely, he's an archaeologist.
He
He'll
should know.
He should know.
Yeah.
You talked about Ram being the man of principle and embodying, what dharma really means, and that's why he was called the Maryada Purushottam. But there are incidents, and as you touched upon them earlier as well, there are incidents in Ramayana where, he comes across as not being right. And, some such incidents are like the way Bali was killed,
Mhm.
uh, the Sita's Agni Pariksha for the feminists, it's the most burning
Yes.
topic to counter as to how regressive we were then and how we will again go back to being regressive if we start following those times and him.
Yeah.
But coming back to the point, there are incidents in Ramayana which to somebody today would come across very controversial and not being right.
Correct.
So, how will you explain them or answer them when it comes to their questions about
Okay.
Sita's Agni Pariksha or Bali's killing or
Okay.
even Shambuka's death?
Killing, yeah.
Yeah,
So let me take each one separately.
Sure,
Because
yeah.
that's the best way to do
of
it.
course, yeah.
And yes, they are controversial,
Mm.
but they're controversial if you look at it from with a lens of black and white,
Mm.
right and wrong.
Mm.
If we have that lens, then it's controversial.
Mm.
If you look at it from the point again of dharma,
Mm.
then it looks different.
Mm.
And why does it look different? So let me explain the killing of Bali.
Mm.
So Bali had this necklace,
Hmm.
which was given to him by Indra. He was Indra's son.
Right. Yeah.
So born of Indra.
Hmm.
So Indra had given him this magic necklace,
Hmm.
and that necklace had the power to sap the strength of
the
whoever
opponent.
faced him.
Yeah.
So if he stood in front of you
Mm.
and you fought with him, your strength would go to Bali.
Right.
So there was no
Way
it was
to
not a fair
compare.
competition.
Mm-hmm.
You could not defeat Bali.
Mm.
It was impossible.
Mm.
So now here is a situation where Bali had become an atyachari.
Mm. Mm.
He had committed the crime of taking his sister-in-law and making her his wife, Sugriva's wife,
Sugriva.
right? Roma. He took her and he made her his wife,
Mm.
right? Now in our Vedic culture, a younger brother's wife is to be treated as your daughter-in-law,
True. Mm.
as your daughter.
True.
You cannot look at her with lustful eyes.
Correct.
So Vali committed the sin of incest
Mm.
in our Vedic context.
Mm.
It was the sin of incest.
Mm.
This sin had to be punished. The punishment for this sin is death.
Mm.
Okay?
Mm.
Vali cannot be killed.
Mm.
So what do you do? Here there is a dharma sankat.
Correct.
You cannot kill him in a fair fight, yet he has to be killed,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So Sugriva and Rama, they say that Sugriva will fight with Vali,
Mm.
will invite him for a fight, and Rama will kill him.
Okay.
On the face of this, adharma.
Mm.
Against the rules of battle. When two people are fighting,
Then the
Our,
third one is not supposed
third
to.
one is not
harm.
supposed to. This is in our shastras. It's against the rules.
Mm.
But that's why dharma is different from morality that is black and white. Because in dharma, and life is like that, you don't always have to choose between right and wrong. Sometimes you have to choose between
A bigger cause.
a bigger
and,
cause.
yeah.
And let go of one dharma
Mm.
for a greater dharma.
Correct.
So the greater dharma in this case was to rid the world of Vali
Mm.
and to punish Vali. That was the greater dharma. The only way it could be achieved was this way.
Correct.
Because if Rama had stood in front of him,
Mm.
what would have happened? Vali would have killed Rama.
Correct.
Because when Rama took birth, he took birth as a human being.
Human being,
And the
true.
reason for that he took birth was actually it's important to say, which again we have forgotten, is that Ravana had a boon which he could not be killed by anybody. No Deva, no Asura, no Naga, no bird, no beast, no one. Only by a human being. He said he didn't care about human beings because they're too puny and ordinary. So, therefore, this incarnation
Had
to take place in a way that the avatar did not know he was an avatar, did not have any idea of, he did not perform any miracles. If you see, it's very different from the Krishna avatar.
Correct. Where Krishna...
And he performed miracles from birth. The door opened of the prison and the river parted. All these were miracles.
But
that was different. It was a different purpose.
Correct.
He didn't have that. He was not fighting someone who had this boon.
Right.
See? So
Right.
when this is a very special thing about the Rama avatar, and that's why I find there's a tenderness that I have towards. I'm not saying that I don't have towards Krishna. I love the Bhagavad Gita, and of course, but there is a certain tenderness just because you can relate to him as a human being. You can relate to him as a human being because he was a human being. He had all the same issues that we have. Of course, that's why he was exceptionally principled, and we admire him. He's inspirational because despite being a human being, he could
follow Dharma
to this extent. I think I've digressed and forgotten your question. Can you?
So we'll come back to the question. How about Sita's Agni Pariksha?
Okay, so Sita's Agni Pariksha was, there's an incident in the Valmiki Ramayana, which is not there in other Ramayanas. But it's actually it was a shock to me to read it, but it's there. When, Rama goes chasing the deer because Sita wants the deer. Then the deer is actually Maricha. So he shouts out, hey Sita, hey Lakshmana, or he calls out, right?
Correct.
And then Sita gets very perturbed and she tells Lakshman, you please go. Why are you here with me? And he says, listen, I can't go. My brother has told me to stay and I've never disobeyed my brother. And you cannot be left here. This forest is full of Rakshasas. It's very dangerous. I cannot go. And she insists on him going. He's refusing to go. Finally, she gets angry. And when we get angry, we say things that we shouldn't say.
We shouldn't say.
Right? So this is how a biography is different. So she says to Lakshmana, who had served her like she was his mother. He treated her, he used to do, he used to touch her feet every day.
She questions his character.
His character. She says to him, you don't want your brother to live and you want me. This was so painful to Lakshmana. He says it's like molten arrows in my ears. Your words are hurting me like as if someone is piercing my ears with molten arrows.
Right.
And he says, now that you've said this, for the first time in my life, I have to disobey my brother. And I am leaving you and let the forest devtas take care of you. No Lakshman Rekha.
Acha.
No Lakshman Rekha.
That's another...
No Lakshman Rekha, another difference. He just says, may the forest devtas take care of you. He's red-faced, he's angry, he's burning, smoke's coming out of his ears. And he walks off and he leaves her. And he goes to Rama, and Rama comes running because he thinks that, okay, Lakshman might leave Sita because he'll hear this and then he'll leave. And then Rama says to him, why have you come? You shouldn't have left her. That was a Rakshasa. They might try and get her. He says, this is what she said to me. He says, okay, she said it. She was angry. You should have not listened to that. Poor guy got it from both sides. Not only did Sita say this, but his brother also had no sympathy for him. He said, you should not have left her. And anyway, the thing is, he was very hurtful. Now, fast forward. Rama absolutely loved Sita. He loved her like no man loves another woman. When she was kidnapped, he was so heartbroken. Someone who was so calm at all times, completely composed, he broke down. He broke down, he was a wreck, a nervous wreck. He was running around that forest saying, where is my wife? I cannot leave without her. I have to have her. So this is the kind of love he had for her. So we know the story. He and Lakshmana, they go, they recover her and everything.
Right.
This was not easy. If he was a person of ego, if he had those kind of feelings, why would he go and recover her? He knew she was kidnapped by Ravana. If he knew she was with another man over there, he knew that.
Correct.
But he loved her so much that this was not important to him. He wanted her back. He could have gone back to Ayodhya and married any number of women.
Right.
Don't forget, he was very good looking also.
True.
So,
And after all, he was the king.
And he was a king. So he could have married any number. But he only wanted her. So he recovers her. And all the time, this is where Valmiki Ramayana is beautiful. It's described, his feelings of, on the way. He keeps telling Lakshmana, I miss her so much. I can't bear to be without her. The sorrow is beautifully, poetically described in the Valmiki Ramayana. I've tried to capture some of that in my book. So readers have an essence of it. But anyway, so when he when the war is over, he says, very unusual thing. He tells Vibhishana, he says, tell Sita to come to me.
Okay.
Here in the Bali. I can't go there because I'm still in Vanvas. I can't go into a city. But tell her to come here, but tell her to come dressed up. Very unusual request. Like full shringar.
Of course.
So when they tell Sita that, okay, the war is over and now, it's time to come and all that, she's ready to go as she is in her, dirty clothes and all, because she was not taking care of herself when she was in that Ashoka one. She was, so she said that, no, I want to go right away. She couldn't wait to see him. They said, no, he wants you to dress up. So she says, dress up? Okay, if he wants me to dress up, I'll dress up, but why? Anyway, she dresses up and she comes. When she comes, after this whole thing which you read, that how he's missing her, how he's crying about her, how he can't wait to be with her, when she comes, he's absolutely stiff and looks at her and he says, I have rescued you, but now you can go wherever you want, to any place you want. But we can't be together. Okay? Very odd. I mean, why did he go and rescue her then? Right?
Right.
And then he says, you are like, this is important words. He says, you are like a bright lamp for a blind person. So for a blind person, where is the fault? The fault is in the lamp or in the blind person? It's in the blind person, right? So what he's trying to convey to her is that I know you are pure and wonderful, but people are blind. People will talk about you. This is what, but she's obviously very upset when she hears that, and she pushes back. She's a very strong woman. Sita is not a weakling. She was a very strong woman. She says to him, "You're talking to me like an ordinary man talks to an ordinary woman. I'm not an ordinary woman. I'm born of the earth. I'm not an ordinary woman, and don't equate me with these women who are loose-moraled." She said, "If I was touched at any point of time, I was a prisoner." When Ravana took her, he had to physically take her, right? So she says, if I was touched, it was because I was a prisoner. But my mind has always been with you. I have never wavered in my loyalty to you. And she says, she's so angry, she says, since I am being doubted, since my character is in question, she tells Lakshmana, prepare a pyre. I want to prove myself. Because Agni is a Sakshi, is the universal Sakshi. So she says, I will prove myself. So he never tells her. He never tells her to do anything. It's her choice. The reason he does this whole drama is because when she comes, there are three emotions that are in his mind. One is extreme joy, that the love of my life is walking towards me, finally. Extreme joy. That is what we all expect, right? The second was a tinge of anger, that she spoke so rudely to Lakshmana, who had done nothing but serve them.
It could
right?
have saved all.
It could have saved all this. So it was a little irritation in his mind, you know. It's like when your child runs across the street and you go to the other side and you just say, "Why did you do that?"
Yeah,
you know.
true.
It's not that because you don't love your child. It's because there is that tinge of anger also, relief also that the child didn't get hit. Anyway, that's just an example. But and the third one, which was overriding in his mind, was they were going back. The Vanvas was almost over. That she would have to face ninda. Ninda is the best word. From people. People will talk about her. Because people will say, oh, she lived with Ravana for almost a year. Not
But
a
it
full
is
year.
true that there was a dhobi who said
No,
that.
that I'll come to that. So these are the three emotions. So when she walks through the fire, after that Agni, in the story, Agni comes out holding her and says to Rama, here is your Sita. She is absolutely pure. I as Agni am Sakshi saying that she's pure. He says, I always knew that. I never doubted her for a minute. He says that, but people would say things and that would be hurtful to her. I did not want her to face that. It's not pleasant for anybody to face social ridicule. Nobody likes that. He did not want his wife to face that, not for himself, but for her. So you see, when you see this in that context, it's different. He didn't do it out of ego. He didn't do it out of for her to prove her chastity or purity.
But then the argument goes a little further, saying that why should it have bothered him what people said?
It didn't bother
was the
him, it
king.
bothered him for her. It would have bothered her. Just, I don't think there's any human being who
would like to
likes
be-
to be spoken ill of, especially in that day and age. Even
Right.
today.
Even
If-
today.
If today somebody trolls you,
Yeah, of course.
would you like it? You won't like it.
Hmm.
Somebody talks badly of you, somebody shames you.
Hmm.
How painful is that?
Correct.
It would be painful for her.
Hmm.
If he had those kind of concerns, why would he go and rescue her?
Right.
He's a lot of effort for nothing. He could have easily just trotted back to Ayodhya and married somebody else. There were so many women he could have married. It did not matter to him at all. He did it for her. There's a difference. He did it for her. So she would not feel that pain.
Right.
So that is the Agni Pariksha. What was the other one? Shambuka.
Shambuka.
Okay, Shambuka. Now, Shambuka episode comes in the Uttarakhand, which is the epilogue. There's a lot of debate about whether the Uttarakhand is
Was
part of the original
text or
Valmiki's
not,
Ramayana
yes,
or
yeah.
not. And I'm not going there. It's included. I have actually included it in my book. The reason I included it is because I use the Gita Press translation and it's there. So I just included it. But there is a lot of debate on whether it's. But aside from that, even if we take just the incident of whether it happened or not happened, Shambuka was doing a tapasya. And a tapasya is not necessarily always for good. You can do a bad tapasya also. Ravana did a bad tapasya. He did tapasya and he got this power that he can't be killed by anybody except a human being, right? That was out of a tapasya. But the tapasya was for what? It was not for public good. His tapasya was for personal aggrandizement.
Correct.
His tapasya. So in Shambuka's case, Shambuka was a Shudra, right? Now the accusation is that he was killed because of his varna. He was doing a tapasya where he should not have been doing tapasya. Absolutely wrong interpretation. Because there are many people who were Shudras, like Matanga, who's Shabri's guru, great Rishi, Matanga. He was the son of a barber.
Of course, yeah.
But his tapasya was good tapasya. Nobody killed him.
The understanding of caste, one Vyavastha is incorrectly interpreted in the caste system.
Yes. So the reason why he killed Shambuka was Shambuka was doing a tapasya like Ravana to get power over the three worlds. He wanted to get get personal power. now he would have turned into another Ravana.
Another Ravana. True.
So why he killed him is, and there is the people say that it didn't really happen because he kills him without discussing, and which is unusual for Rama. And it's also, you know, in our Sanatana Dharma, we believe in ahimsa, right? And ahimsa is not non-violence, even though it's translated as such.
It's translated.
It's not non-violence. It is using the least violent option. If violence has to be, it has to be. After all, Ramayana and Mahabharata are both about wars.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita tells you about
Yes, so the
picking
thing-
up the
Yes, and the reason is because to protect Dharma.
Dharma.
So in this case, Rama killed Shambuka to protect Dharma, not because he was of his varna or anything like that.
True.
If he were doing a tapasya for benefit of humanity, there was no reason to kill him. But he was doing a wrong tapasya. He would have
Correct.
turned into another Ravana.
Another Ravana.
So you have to look at it in context. Again, as I said, dharma is contextual.
Of course.
So in the context of killing him, if he was doing a beneficial tapasya, that was obviously it's wrong. But if he's doing a bad tapasya for a bad purpose that will harm humanity as a whole, then it is dharma to kill him.
True.
So we have to look at all these incidents through the lens of dharma and not black and
they
white,
can't
right
be
and wrong.
isolated also. There is always a
Out,
context to
yes,
what
you
is
cannot
going
take
on.
them out of
True.
context.
True. You mentioned we talked about we are already talking about Ramayana, Valmiki's Ramayana. You mentioned Mahabharata. I know personally that you also are a student of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. You have read Upanishads and Vedas, and what is it, if we look at it from all these ancient scriptures of ours, what is the sar and what is the connect of all? We had this very interesting discussion offline, and I would like you to talk about it online as to the
Okay.
connect between Ramayana, Mahabharata, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and the Vedas.
Okay. So all of them say the same thing. They all have the same message. And the message is Aham Brahmasmi. That is the message. Now, that message can be communicated through a Vedanta class, which is wonderful. We'll have 6 students, 3 of whom will be nodding off. Because philosophy is very dry and very heavy and very boring.
True.
So that's one way. The other way, which it can be communicated, which has mass appeal, is through enactment. So that's why we love movies. And that's why when you talked about the Ramayana serial, why it was so popular, life came to a standstill
True.
to watch the Ramayana. Why? Because it appealed to that
The
aspect. The
visual
same
medium, of
thing,
course, yeah.
the same lessons. If you told people come for a Vedanta class, it's a different story.
True.
So the message is the same, but the Ramayana and the Mahabharata enact it. So they show you in action how to live that philosophy, how to live Aham Brahmasmi.
Right.
The Mahabharata actually is even more in a way, because Rama shows you how to be. The Mahabharata shows you how to be and how not to be. It focuses a lot on how the not to be,
And in
the
fact,
darker aspects.
in fact, if you read the character of Rama, and then if you study Srimad Bhagavad Gita, how to be is exactly how
Exactly.
Ram embodies
Exactly.
it. True.
Every single thing. And that's why, in fact, I wrote this book.
How
I
wonderful.
came to this book from the point of view of Vedanta. Now, the Bhagavad Gita is a Vedantic text.
True.
It is there are 3, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutras are the Prasthanatrayam
Right.
of Vedanta.
Right.
There are core fundamental texts. So after studying the Bhagavad Gita, I realized that Rama is a walking Bhagavad Gita. Everything that Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Rama enacts. Every
Correct.
single thing.
Correct.
So one of them is samatvam.
Hmm.
So Bhagavad Gita says that, whether it's in good times or bad times, sukhe dukkha same kritva. He says that,
You
just
remain the same.
remain the same.
Hmm.
Labha labha jaya jaya.
Correct.
Whether in gain or loss,
Hmm.
you
In
remain
victory or
remain
failure,
equanimous.
Yeah. True.
So this is what the Bhagavad Gita says. Does Ram not enact that?
Absolutely.
He's absolutely enacting that. He's showing you how you can do that. So the answer to your question is, the message is the same. The way it is portrayed is different, and and it's worked. The Ramayana and the Mahabharata have been like how
Perpetual
many
bestsellers, yeah.
for centuries.
True.
Centuries, millennia.
Millennia.
Forget
Yeah.
centuries, millennia, and we're still talking about it.
True.
That's the appeal.
True.
So more people will be interested in this medium than in the Upanishads. The Upanishads are equally older, but nobody's sitting and reading them or studying them.
True. You being a writer yourself, how do you view the interpretations that have come out, especially in the modern, years where people have taken liberties and while interpreting the Ramayana and Mahabharata as well. But since we're talking about Ramayana, how do you view it?
Well, I think that, to interpret a text, I feel you really should read the original. Ideally, in the original language.
In the original.
If you're studying Shakespeare and you're studying it in, say, Bengali or Hindi or Tamil or whatever, it's not the same as studying it in English.
Correct.
There is a certain degradation in meaning.
Of course.
So a lot of, and I can't say this for sure, but I would presume a lot of interpretations are based on versions that are not the original. Because if you go to the original, I doubt that you can come up with that kind of interpretation. It's difficult to. Because you're getting it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Correct.
So that's my take on. See, the beauty of Sanatana Dharma is that nobody is going to be killed or for what their views are. You're entitled to your views. If people have those views, those are their views. They may not be the right views, but they're entitled to their views. That's those are their views. And Sanatana Dharma gives you that liberty. It gives you that liberty. Freedom of speech.
Of course.
See? Modern value, which is coming down from then.
Democracy.
You have freedom. Democracy.
The democracy that we talk about, and while there were a lot of bright people who were involved in putting together our constitution, but since he's called the father, Ambedkar himself pointed this out.
Yeah.
That democracy is based on our Upanishads.
Yes.
And if the Hindus themselves understand it,
Yes.
understand and follow their Upanishads, they
Yes.
would not be discriminating.
Yes.
So it's
Absolutely.
part of our lives.
Yes.
It's so much part of our
Yes.
lives. On that note, I would love to thank you, Priya. We've had so many discussions and so many guests in our podcast, but this is special to me because we talked about such profound concepts right from the heart, and it was so smooth. It was so easy you made it so easy to understand and comprehend. And I do hope that every listener goes and buys her book. I think it's one book that will help you understand yourself better.
Yes.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure
been
to
a
be
delight.
here. And as I told you, I love talking about the subject. So it's my pleasure to have been here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Priya.
Thank you.
If you want to continue listening in to such interesting conversations about Bharat, do like and subscribe.